It's just now the leech representing China. Does put any extra pressure on him?
He is not fighting alone. All the Chinese people is behind him. You know, China has a lot of people.
The toughest guy in China. Second if you count Bruce Lee. My name is Romandel Cruz, and I've been a friend of Crank's since ever since. Dude, the buildings were big. To say, holy Moses, you're fighting the toughest guy in China was more like, whoa, bro, Frank's fighting in the UFC. So we were really consumed with that. You know, I'm not the only guy that knocked him out. You know, I'm not the only guy that knocked Frank out. It's weird, you'll see a guy, his first fight in the UFC, and he's got like 23 fights or whatever. Maybe some guy's his third or fourth fight in his career. There are some people that grind a lot longer to get into that main arena. Well, Frank took the long haul. It happens, and you know, of course, you rise and you fall with your friends, you know what I mean? But you help them up, you help them rise again. And Frank never really needed too much help.
UFC weigh-ins for Fight Night 111. Yes, Crank, how was your weight cut?
Dude, very good.
So how many pounds did you have to cut for this tournament?
Starting the camp a week and a half ago, 9 pounds, yeah.
2 weeks away from your last fight? Saipan to Singapore.
Saipan to Singapore to wherever it's going to take us next, man.
Yeah. Hey, look, we never miss a beat. My flow's a roller coaster. Whoa, they hold on to your seats.
Everybody's trying to be noticeable in their own certain way. You got people that are stepping out of character to be bad guys. You have people just trying to look cool. You people doing whatever they can. They're coloring their hair, they're whatever. But it was cool because Frank and his opponent didn't have to step out of character to be standouts in a different kind of martial arts audience. In Asia, they're still in that whole honorific moment. They're still caught in the romantic side of martial arts and that kind of fighting. And Frank was able to make his mark in Singapore by being a respectful martial artist. And he proved it not only with his conduct in the press conference, but he proved it with his performance that night.
Thank you, sir. Will be done on earth as is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Nobody
do this.
Fighting out of the blue corner.
Right when he introduced fighting out of Saipan, Frank, you know, and well, I don't know if you realize it, but there was probably the whole Saipan was on your back, you know what I mean?
The call-up has been a long time coming for the veteran Camacho, and it is a very tough test against
In the fight, there was a point where Frank knocked him down, or Frank had him on the ground, but Frank decided to stand him back up. You know, of course, you always hear where that backseat fighter going, dude, if that was me, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But, you know, we're in the distance. We don't understand what the fighter's feeling. Maybe the submission wasn't there. We were thinking that Frank was trying to have too much fun. So when Frank was taking the big hits, we were feeling them with him.
Against the fence for the first time.
Go, Frank, go. Holy Moses, he's growling. He's growling.
Walking forward with his
when Frank started to growl, dude, that was the time. But we began to see why this guy was considered to be the toughest guy, or what is the toughest guy in his weight division in China or whatever. But then we also got to see that Frank is a fighting Chamorro.
Oh, there it is again. Well, Camacho then with a big cry.
You know, it's a very emotional fight for all of us. When the fight didn't go Frank's way, I remember we were sitting in the audience and Sarah was really bummed, you know what I mean? And your dad was bummed. But after the fight, so we got to the hotel, the mood's kind of somber. Of course, it's supposed to be somber. We're happy that Frank fought well in the UFC, but dude, he was supposed to win. No. If he had only done what we told him to do from the stands to finish the guy when the guy was on the ground, he would have won the UFC. We told you, Frank, we told you. Sarah gets a call and said, hey, Frank got the fight of the night. We're like, what? Frank got a fight. And said, what? I think if Frank had finished him in that first fight, it would have been dominating, but not dominating enough to get him the performance of the night. Everybody wants to live that Rocky story. Little did we know that that Rocky story was making its own way right in front of our eyes.
Thank you so much in such a short time to like take the fight. Oh, yeah. We didn't take the fight, maybe he can't even And he really admires you.
He broke his foot on your leg.
Oh shit! Damn!
So it's game day. We finally get there. The anticipation is high, and we've been waiting 14 years for this day, and Frank's gonna fight. All right, I got in. I've been waiting in line for 20 minutes. They took my Kulu, but I got in. Bert comes to me and says, hey, Rome, you gotta go back to the hotel to get Frank's mouthpiece. Am I gonna fucking go get caught in a traffic jam to come back and miss Frank's fight? Say, hey, dude, Bert, why are you? How about you? I'll go send Sarah. You know? I couldn't do that, but that was a heart wrencher. Glad to save the day.